Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Julio Capol, and let's queer up gay culture. Fighting for love, polyamorous families push for legal recognition. Polyamorous families have always existed, but now they're demanding visibility, dignity, and legal protection. A new generation of LGBTQ activists and lawyers is working to ensure that relationships involving more than two partners are no longer hidden in the shadows. Take the story of Cam McDonald, Bryan Lowder, and Tristan Chirico. Cam met Tristan on a gay dating app 3 years after marrying Bryan, and the trio never planned a polyamorous setup. Now, in a committed throuple for nearly 8 years, they share a New York City apartment, yet face serious legal hurdles. If Tristan were hospitalized, his partners couldn't have visitation rights. They can't share insurance, and even inheritance rights are murky. Lawyer and longtime activist Diana Adams says this isn't rare. That is, 4 to 5% of U.S. adults practice non-monogamy, and 31% of millennials describe their relationships as non-monogamous. But without legal recognition, poly families face housing discrimination, custody battles, and job loss, all because their relationship structure isn't protected under current law. PLAC, that's the Polyamory Legal Advocacy Coalition, is pushing back, drafting legislation, and educating city councils. And small wins are happening, from domestic partnership policies in cities like Somerville, Massachusetts, to a precedent-setting New York court ruling. Advocates believe it's time U.S. law caught up with love in all of its forms. You know, I love that this is, like, the story is really introducing us to, like, what's coming, I think, down the pike. And it's an interesting time for such an issue to come to the fore, really. And of course, as the story said, it's not new. And we're seeing so many parallels with same-sex marriage, where even Mormon, like, you know, there's so many kind of precedents here for us to think about different ways that families take, right? And relationships take, and the ways that the state either recognizes or doesn't. And if there's one thing, like when we think that we get married, that we're like in some kind of relationship with our partner, we're in a relationship with the state. Like that's really what we're doing, right? Is we find a relationship with the state that ties us to all these things. But it's because of these very dire needs, right? That is, imagine a New York City apartment, like this particular case, and, you know, it's daunting. Housing insecurity, we have, you know, food insecurity, we have like the inability to get health care. All of those things are caught up on our real relationships and our, you know, I like to see how this can develop in ways, and for the conversation to move towards ideas of greater equity and access to people that doesn't necessarily have to hinge always on ideas of marriage in the traditional way. Because I also love the queerness of not going through these kind of routes. That is, I think all these things can coexist, and I hope that the conversation finds ways to just expand healthcare, make affordable housing, and in addition to, find legal rights for people who are in throuples or in other spaces.
And you know, I think that, you know, it will happen. It probably isn't going to happen tomorrow, but there are a lot of look at the Mormons that take multiple wives. That's nothing new, and it is happening, and there needs to be a way to craft somehow protections. Like before we were granted same-sex marriage, we had to protect ourselves with multiple legal documents and powers of attorney and limited medical partnerships and I would recommend that right now, because that's the only way it's going to happen. Liz Schwartz. Elizabeth Schwartz.
Excuse me.
Don't call her Liz. Elizabeth Schwartz. She's my attorney.
You know, I don't have the capacity. I don't have the legal skill or whatever to tackle the legality of it. But from a religious standpoint, I always tell people I'm doing a wedding, your marriage didn't start today. We're celebrating it today. Your marriage started when you made your commitment and started living your life as a couple. That's when your commitments and that's when it started. Now, you're just letting us in on the party today. Thank you for that. And I have done blessings for arrangements that weren't just couples, because in the Anglican tradition, you bless the hounds for the hunt that's going to go kill a fox. I've blessed swimming pools and cars. Once during St. Francis thing, I blessed a snake. It wrapped around my neck, and I blessed it. There was a donation involved, but still, to the church, not to me. But yeah, I'm saying, if I will bless your snake, of course I'll bless your family. You know, it's in my business how you formed it or what your life together is like or whatever. And if you're talking about biblical family values, I can name you, first of all of the patriarchs. The biblical family, Solomon had 700 wives, 300 concubines, and a one-night stand with the Queen of Sheba. I have never met someone who kept up with that record. So I don't know what the legality is. I don't know about the complexity. I don't care. I'm monogamous mostly because I'm lazy. I can't be bothered to do anything else. But if you have your life and your agreement, I'm just so happy if you're happy. Of course I'll bless that. I'm so tired of people trying to control your brain, your heart, and your crotch. I can't be bothered with any of that.
Right.
You heard it here first, folks. Bishop Darrell Watkins wants to bless your snake.
Yeah.
You heard it here.
No, have done. Didn't want to, but have done.
That's all I heard.
It's interesting because the conversation right now, a lot of, a big conversation, of course, is around, Social Security and benefits.
Right.
And let's take our president, for example. He has 3 wives, 2 of which he's been married to for more than 10 years. So when he passes away, both of those wives will receive Social Security benefits for the rest of their life, as long as you've been married for 10 years. How many people in our community have been in long-time relationships that were not married, that would not be qualified for that? And so these type of arrangements are really, again, not just favoring traditional marriage, but again, the archaic traditional man-woman marriages that existed. I mean, I have clients that, regularly it's like, oh, well, I'm getting my first husband's Social Security benefit because my current husband made less money than him. And I'm like, when were you married to them? Oh, in the 70s for like 10, you could, again, over someone who's 80 years old could be married. I mean, look at Elizabeth Taylor. She's got, how many husbands did she have? Like, if you're married to somebody for 10 years, you get full Social Security benefits for that person. So it's crazy to imagine that we're allowing that to exist today in 2025, that everybody who's married for as long as you can stay married for 10 years, but yet we're not giving those same type of protections and benefits to people who are in current relationships. Right. I mean, existing relationships that are valid and real, and that person is willing to go out and say, I want these people to have the legal protections that we all are subject to without having to do your own legal documents.
Right. And if we're not going to have affordable education, and if we're not going to have universal health care, then these things are how people also get some of those things.
Yeah.
So it is a justice issue, really.
And for all the reasons Jeff just said and everyone else said, to me, one of the things that gets left out of this conversation, and by the way, I'm very pro-marriage, to be very clear that I don't, one of the things that gets left out of this is that for a long time, straight couples have had a pathway to citizenship that is for this, that same-sex marriage and any form of marriage is an immigration issue too. Yes. And in moments where immigrants are being targeted and undocumented, like that is to imagine more expansion of validating our families, our relationships, more of that. I want to see more of that. Right. And that's anything that kind of has a pathway to saying that we belong is important.
Yeah, love is love, and we should always celebrate love.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.